Okay, thanks everybody for coming. As mentioned, this will be our final press conference before we head to fall camp later on in September. We're going to open up with comments from our President of Basketball Operations, Neil Olshey, and then CJ will also have some opening remarks, and then we'll open it up to questions. Please state your name and affiliation when asking your question.
Good morning. Thanks for coming back again. I know I've taken a lot of Fridays from everybody, so but we've had a lot of business to conduct this summer, none more important than this. So I want to welcome CJ's family. We put this off because he was off hooping, trying to win $2 million. So we put this off a little bit longer than we normally would based on the contract signing date. We're really excited about it. I want to welcome his family. They traveled a long way to be out here. I know they're excited. And I also want to thank Sam Goldfeder, who's here. Sam and I go back a long way. We went through the Blake Griffin days together with CJ, and nobody was more instrumental the last 3 years in helping CJ through what was some challenging early years with the organization based on some things that he faced in terms of roster composition and injury. And, between his mom, dad, brother, Sam, everybody, the position that he was in last summer, it was a group effort, and I know that. And like I said, we believed in CJ day one, but it took an entire family to make sure that we were at this point today, and everybody's contributions were invaluable. I also want to thank Terry, who couldn't be here today at a prior obligation. He's traveling. But the work that he and Nate and David and Jay Triano and Dale Osborne and all the coaches did, when you have a guy like CJ, the kind of work ethic he has, living in the gym, you've got to have coaches that are willing and able to be in there as well. And they're responsible for this also. So anyway, it's a great day for our organization. It was probably the most important piece of off-season business we had, was to make sure that we were as committed to one another as we expected to be based on the relationship we have. That's represented by the contract, the term, and how CJ handled everything this summer. So again, thank you, and I'll let CJ speak.
Yeah, I'm just thankful to be in this position. First and foremost, I want to thank Neil for having that patience and that trust in me. I want to thank Mr. Allen for, as I sent an email, taking a chance on a 6'3" skinny kid from Lehigh University and being patient as I was hurt early on. I was breaking fingers and not consistent with my performance, but I was consistent with my work ethic throughout. So I want to thank you guys first and foremost, and then I want to thank Sam. I appreciate what you've done and what you do for me, accepting me, making me a member of your family. I want to thank my parents, my mom, my dad. I appreciate you guys. I know you guys have sacrificed. I know you guys have done a lot for me, a lot of long nights in the gym rebounding, a lot of stern punishments for not doing well outside of the house and in the classroom. So I appreciate you guys. Eric, you know what you mean to me, and you know the type of relationship we have. So, and then I can't forget the fans of Portland and the city of Oregon in general. You guys have been amazing, even from day one when I was on crutches and getting round of applause, checking into the game. All that stuff is very important and crucial, and one of the reasons why I wanted to be a part of this organization for the long term. And I'm thankful we were able to get a deal done. And I told Sam before, I said, do whatever you have to do to get me to stay here. I want to be here. I've been looking at houses since my rookie year and kind of pictured myself here for the long term. So I'm thankful for the opportunity and looking forward to building something special with this young core group of guys we have. I think we're going to be very good. We have a lot of work ethic, a lot of guys who are unproven, had 1 year of success, and looking forward to continuing to have success and continuing to kind of build a lasting legacy in the NBA. And I think that's the type of attitude all our players have, starting with Dame, a guy who's come from a small school, who's earned everything he's received, and looks forward to kind of continuing to build and continuing to win.
Questions?
CJ, after a breakout season, now signing this big contract, what will motivate you? What will drive you moving forward now?
I think for me, the biggest thing is just continuing to strive for greatness. I think that's kind of my mindset. I want to continue to get better. I know there's a lot of areas I can improve on. Haven't only played, I played 80 regular season games. This is my first full season of understanding, scouting reports, understanding that I'm actually on the scouting report now instead of, being the guy you kind of, he's the backup and he can shoot. Like, that's kind of how the scouting report went for a lot of teams. So understanding now that the role's going to increase, the pressure's going to increase, and I look forward to the challenge to continue to represent my last name to the best of my abilities, coming from a small school, continue to try to keep that pipeline open for for the next guy that plays like C.J. McCollum, it might have been undersized or not had a position in college.
CJ, you talked about, both you and Dame, always about being the underdogs. And how do you keep that attitude now when you've got a $100 million contract?
No, that's a good question. I think it's how you're wired. I think the money is circumstantial. It doesn't change you. It changes a lot of times the people around you. It puts them in better position to succeed. It allows you to buy things you need and want. It allows you to kind of uplift people who need help. But for me, I already have money. Like, I'm already in a good situation. Obviously, I don't have generational wealth, but I'm already in the top 2%. So now I move up to the 1%. But from the standpoint of basketball, this is what we love to do. This is what we played for free all our lives, and a lot of guys would play for free at this point just because of what the game means to them. You look at rec centers, you look at, old man leagues. They're playing, barely getting up and down the court, but they love the game, and that's the kind of passion I have for the game. And I think I told the story about a little kid coming to the game and being able to see you play for the first time. You want to impact his life, and you want him to leave the gym saying, wow, CJ goes hard, he cares about the game, he loves basketball.
Neil, David McKay, Blazers Edge. How did the impending CBA renegotiations affect how you approach this extension?
It didn't. It didn't.
Okay.
What was the advantage of doing it now, or why did you want to get it done now as opposed to 1 year?
Look, the advantage is that we now have, a 5-year commitment from CJ. More than anything, he earned it. I think one of the things we're trying to establish here is that when we take care of our players, sometimes, being in a market that's, somewhat removed geographically, from the core of other areas of the league, I think we end up in a situation where it's really important that players know when they come here they're treated well. And that's not just with the resources we're lucky enough to have, because of an owner like Paul Allen, and practice facilities and travel and coaches and, the expertise we have in the training room. But it's also contractually. We want guys to know that when they come here, when they perform, that when they buy into our culture, that they are valued. And we want to make sure that we keep the guys that want to be here. We've talked about that all summer. CJ wanted to be here. When Dame did it, Dame wanted to be here. And that's why you see the chemistry on the floor. We don't have mercenaries here. We have guys that choose to be here, buy into Terry's system, buy into our culture, how we do things. It's why we're very selective with the kind of guys we bring in, whether it's via trade, draft, or free agency, because we do have a culture that we really think is imperative to success. We've got one of the youngest teams in the league still. We're the youngest team in the playoffs last summer. We didn't get any older this year. But we need guys that when they come in, they know that if they do the right things, we're going to do right by them. Also, look, strategically, you want to know. You have consistency. We don't want guys playing in contract years if they don't have to be. I don't want that hanging over anybody's head. I want it to be pure and about winning basketball games and competing at the highest level for the good of the team. We talk about this all the time. We're a players-first organization, okay, as evidenced by things like things that we do for our players. But in turn, the quid pro quo is they become team-first guys. And I think if you ask Dame or you ask CJ, who are the leaders of this team, we don't have any non-team first guys in this organization. If we did, they'd be gone. Because that's the culture we're building, and it's why we overachieved last year, and it's why we'll probably overachieve relative to expectations this year.
CJ, could you elaborate on what you like about the team? You mentioned that you like the young core and all that. Next season, what do you like about this team?
I think we have a little bit of everything. You look at the roster, the way we put different pieces together, bringing in Festus, a guy who has championship level experience defensively, impacts the game right away, can hedge ball screens, can do a lot of different things we're not accustomed to. And then you look at Plumlee, a big who can handle the ball, can initiate the offense, kind of serve as our de facto point guard, and a lot of times in situations where Dame and I were getting trapped. I think we have, bringing back AC was big, a guy that can knock down shots, defend, high-level wing, bringing in Evan Turner, a versatile wing who can pass, play on the ball, and I think he'll be an improved three-point shooter this year. So we brought back Mo, we brought back Myers, we brought back a lot of young guys who are, thirsty to get better, thirsty to prove that, the success wasn't a fluke, thirsty to prove that they're worth what they're getting. A lot of guys are looking forward to the challenge of, like Neil said before, over exceeding expectations again, and continuing to win and build because we care about the city, we care about where we come from, we care about what we represent. And I think that's who you get, guys who are, you know, team first.
CJ, the day you put your ink to the paper, actually signing the contract, do you have flashbacks to showing up and all the work you put in? You're like, wow, man, this is it.
Yeah, I mean, my girlfriend kept asking me, "Are you happy?" And I would just be like, "I won't be happy till I sign," you know, because you get programmed to continue to try to get better, get more, don't get content, and I just kind of blocked it out. And then when you start reading about it, then you get a little bit more excited and do a little dance. But besides that, I just like to work out. I like to get better, and I like to get content. So I just try not to think about, you know, the money and try to think about all the pressure, just because it's a game I played since I was a kid, and I try to, you know, not take the fun away from it, because when you take the fun away from it, then it becomes a job. And when it's a job, it feels like, you know, you're forced to go. And I'm not forced to go. I enjoy going. I love it. So I was happy about it. We celebrated. We had a nice meal, a little bit of Pinot. You know,
Oregon Pinot?
Yeah, what is it? How you say it? Willamette?
Willamette.
Willamette. Willamette. I'm going to get it right eventually. It was from the Willamette. Yeah, it was really good. And she paid, too.
CJ, you mentioned in your opening comments about some of the stern lessons of your upbringing. Can you expand? I mean, how did your upbringing shape and your family shape who you are right now?
I mean, it's made me who I am. Just like I told a story about my mom saying, "Does she need to go back to work?" Like just being honest and blunt and telling you how the game went, telling you what you need to work on, not sugarcoating it. And I think when you have people in your corner, in your circle that aren't going to tell you what you want to hear and are going to be more helpful for you, in the sense that, you know, my mom, she's got the notepads after every game. You know, she's taking notes and let me know when you're ready for me to go over the scouting report for this week. And I'm like, Mom, I just watched film for 4 hours with DV. Like, I don't want to see this. So just having that patience, and then my dad just telling me, you know, you got to get your handles like Kyrie. Stop getting backdoor. You're a liability on defense. You're like, hearing that, like, from your parents, it's like, okay, it's true. Like, my mom's not going to tell me, you know, you shot well when you went 2 for 10, and the guy you're guarding, Brandon Knight, had 29 points and sealed the game. Like, she's not going to be like, good game. She's going to be like, yeah, that boy's nice. He was going at you. So that's the type of family I have, and just, you know, being able to talk to my brother. He watches the games. He's, you know, recording them and giving me feedback. And we're just kind of like sending each other Snapchats or like scouting reports, like, yo, when you come off the ball screen, you know, look at the hedge, and then read the opposite side of the court. And I just kind of pause it, circle it, send it to him. He's like, okay, I didn't see that. And then it's like, look at your teammate's body language when you shoot. All right, he's unhappy, so you can try to get him some touches early. And then, you know, he'll like setting screens for you. So you got to kind of manipulate your team to where everybody's happy. And that's kind of what we talk about as a family, just trying to figure out ways to be successful while being truthful and honest with each other.
Your mom with the scouting reports, was that like in high school and college, or was that now?
And it's forever. I think it never ends. I think it never ends. Like, my brother will call me like, yo, she's ready for you. I just want to give you a heads up. She called me and said, CJ looks angry today, so I'm not going to talk to him about it. But, you know, I got these notes here, and he's got 2-3 games a week. I need to tell him about this so he doesn't keep doing it. I'm like, I just don't want to see it right now. I just don't want to see it.
You know, just to piggyback on your question about the money with CJ, just as an organization, we wouldn't have given this kind of money to anybody we thought was about the money. So, you know, I think when you look at the guys we have, there isn't 1 ounce of reticence about the amount of money we spent this summer. Again, we're blessed to have Paul as an owner that wanted to be aggressive, wanted to retain all our players, wanted to maximize our cap room. But they were all guys that we know are going to walk into the gym no different than they did day one as rookies, based on their approach to the game, the substance of their character, the way that they treat the game, the way they treat their teammates, the respect that they have for themselves as players in the organization. Any player that would be about the money, we wouldn't be about. So I don't think CJ is any different or AC or Myers or anybody else, other than I think the parking lot in front of the building. I don't know how good my 2012 Highlander is going to look out there this summer, but I have a feeling that the bar might be a little bit raised out there. But other than that, I know that out here with Terry and the coaches, the same level of effort and commitment and respect for the game is going to continue to exist absent any new contract information.
CJ, piggybacking on that, I mean, sure, the money is what it is, but it does also, don't you think, elevate you as far as leadership role on the team? Obviously, Dame's been the one leader and big leader, but now that you've got that contract and that longevity here, does that make you think, hey, now I've got to step up a little bit about on the leadership side?
I think from a leadership standpoint, you don't just, oh, he got paid, he's a leader now. I think you just have to continue to be who you are, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be myself. When I see something and I think something should be said, I'm going to say it, not because I just signed for $100 million, but because I think that's the right thing to say. I think leaders are born. It's you develop as a leader. You don't just appoint somebody like, oh, leader now. So for me, it's just going to be continuing to build off what I've done up to this point. Like, when it's time to lead, I'll lead. When it's time to follow, I'll follow. But there's not a rule or a saying that where, you know, he signed for 75, so he's the third leader. Like, no, I just go hoop, and I'm not afraid to take advice from Luis, who's, you know, no offense, towards the bottom of the depth chart right now. But I'll listen to anyone if it can help me.
Hey Neil, do you remember the first time you saw CJ play, whether it be in person or film? And I guess can you talk about maybe the growth you've seen in his game or as a person over those years?
Yeah, well, you know, CJ and I joke about this all the time, you know, having gone to a small school in bad weather myself. But I went and saw CJ play against Bryant. I don't know if you guys remember. It was Bryant at Lehigh, and it was about 2 nights after Christmas, and it was in a blizzard, and I was staying at the Marriott in Newark Airport, and I kept calling his coach, bugging him, going, is he playing, is he playing, is he playing, because he had a sprained ankle. And he went out basically on one leg and had 34, but he missed a floater at the buzzer. That would have won the game. And I was joking, matter of fact, Jack McCollum was at the game, and we were the only 2 people sitting courtside at the game. The place was empty, students were on break. And he said, oh, who are you here to see? I said, I'm here to see CJ McCollum. And he goes, oh, yeah, I might write something. He might be a first-round pick. And he said, I said, well, he's going in the top 10. And he said, well, how do you know that? I said, because I'm going to be picking in the top 10. So, you know, look, we loved him. Chad Buchanan gets a lot of credit. Chad was on him early. Steve Rosenberry, you know, our assistant GM who's based in Philly, was right there, saw him play dozens of times. You know, but again, not unlike Dame, you know, as a player, we love CJ. We never thought he would get to us at 10. It was kind of a weird draft, the way that draft broke. There were like 4 spots ahead of us that were like locks for him. And just circumstantially, things happened that night in the draft that he just kind of, he got down to us. And like I said, we were thrilled about it. But very similar to Dame, you know, he solidified everything in our mind when we met him. You know, CJ came in for a draft workout, not unlike Dame. He wasn't doing full contact yet because of the injury. But just being around him, watching his approach, how he treated everybody in the building, we knew culturally he would fit. Style of play, we knew he would fit. And, you know, the goal was always to have this backcourt. You know, we were lucky enough to inherit Wes at the time, and we were really successful for the first 2 years, you know, with Wes. And then it was this transition was always going to take place. And, you know, now we see the results of it. And like I said, it's a blessing for our organization that we have one of the best backcourts in the league committed for the next 5 years. But yeah, we saw CJ play a ton of film. Everybody saw him, and everybody that came back, you know, we knew who we wanted in that draft relative to where we were picking very early in the process. And it's kind of how we work. We try to target guys, hone in on them, and then try to do what we need to do to make sure that we're in a position to acquire them.
CJ, looking back at those days when you were injured and fighting through the broken foot, how does your state of mind then compare to your state of mind now?
I think you just stay paranoid. That's the biggest thing, just because there's so much that can happen. Like, you look at the window of us trading for Aaron Afalo, to me going to the bench, to West tearing his Achilles. I just try to be thankful and understand that anything could happen at any given time. So just stay paranoid, put your work in, and know that there's a guy on our bench, on somebody else's bench coming up that's looking at you as a target. Like, I want what he has. So I just continue to work and understand that, you know, I got to put that same work in when I was getting DMPs. Now that I'm a starter and established in the league after 1 year, I got to put that same work in, have that same work ethic, and that's just I didn't think a lot of our coaching staff, but I've worked, you know, very closely with Nate, DV, Jay, and I've talked to Chad Buchanan throughout the years, even when he left to go to Charlotte, just about continuing to keep that work ethic, continuing to remember what it felt like when you didn't play. Remember what it felt like when you show up to the arena knowing you're not going to play. Now that I know I'm going to play when I get there, I got to have that same mindset to continue to take my game to the next level.
Hey Neil, could we get just a comment from you on Maurice resigning Maurice?
Yeah, no, that you know, so so Mo is down here in Florida and we're up here in Portland. So you know, Mo had to come into his physical, and honestly, he just wasn't up for the 11 hours of travel to come back to do a press conference. But I'm sure he'll catch up with you guys when he gets back in September. No, that was another, you know, important, you know, part for us. Look, you know, we kind of took Mo, you know, as an upside play, you know, about around this time last year. The coaches did a phenomenal job of developing him, reinstilling the confidence he had when we looked at him in the draft. You know, we went back and forth for a long time, just making sure that contractually, you know, we were able to compensate Mo. We wanted him to feel valued, but we also had other restrictions that we needed to adhere to in terms of what we wanted to do organizationally. But again, like CJ said, look, player retention was big this summer. You know, we did what we could in terms of free agency, bringing in, you know, skill sets more than players, but skill sets from the outside. But at the end of the day, when you had the youngest team in the playoffs last year, you made the second round. We had a much better second half of the year than we did first half. We felt like we were tracking up. It was really important, you know, in talking to Dame, CJ, Terry, our owner, it was imperative we keep this group together because we think it has tremendous upside and potential, and it's going to continue to grow, and Mo was a big part of that. So, you know, we're happy to have Mo on board. He's one of the youngest veterans for us on the team. I mean, he's only 23 years old. You know, his best days are ahead of him, like a lot of the guys on this roster, and you know, that's why we were able, again, with Paul's consent and endorsement, to make the kind of commitments we made contractually, knowing that the best days of this roster are ahead of us. And like I said, and Mo is an integral part of that.
Mr. Lebo, do you want the last question? No, I'm not. Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you start of fall camp.